This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 105 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Today's episode is all about visiting art galleries on your travels. Now, I am the first to openly admit that I, for most of my life, probably a majority, was not a big fan of art galleries. I don't remember visiting many, probably nearly any in my childhood. So that probably, didn't set me up to be, a big fan of them. And I was never good at art. I have to tell you a secret. Was a bit of a straight A student in high school, but in year 8, in the 8th grade, I got a C for art. It was a compulsory subject. I liked it. And my teacher did say I made a good effort, but my skills were fairly substandard, so that was a C amongst all my A's. So art has not been my kind of special thing, but over the years I have learnt to enjoy it much, much more, and now I openly seek out art galleries. I chat about that a little bit with my first guest today, in fact. And I was thinking about where's one of my favourites, and I thought back to, must be 4 or 5 years ago, to a trip to Europe when I was in Vienna. And I got to take my son, who was then 3 or 4, maybe 4, I think, to the Hundertwasser house in Vienna. So Hundertwasser is that artist who has those very, very colourful, very detailed pictures, and also designs crazy big colourful buildings and all kinds of cool stuff. So look him up if you don't know Hundertwasser. But that gallery is something very special. Like even the floor is supposed to be special. It's not an even normal surfaced floor, and the building itself is crazy looking, and the art is beautiful to me. And it also suited my son at the time. Well, I think it still suits him now, but especially at 4, it's hard to keep your attention looking at lots and lots of art. But because of the way the gallery was set out, and because Hundertwasser's art is a bit, more colourful and more engaging perhaps, then we both had an awesome, awesome day out at the Hundertwasser gallery in Vienna. So that was one of my favourites, I think, for sure. Anyway, we'll hear from 3 people today who know much more about art than I do, and it was really interesting to chat to all of them about art galleries and where they've been around the world and what they think. But before we get to that, I have to introduce our sponsor. This week it is The Boy Who Draws, which is a very appropriate sponsor, I think. So The Boy Who Draws is a little collaboration here in Perth between a boy, obviously, I think he's age 6 now, and his parents, and between them they take his drawings of buildings around the world and turn them into something really gorgeous and special. So it's hard to describe, especially for me. I think it's hard to describe in words. So go onto their website and have a look. They're at theboywhodraws.com. And they have a particular city series, which was going to appeal to we travel lovers. And if you use the discount code Amanda10, you can get a 10% discount on anything in their city series, their prints or their card packs using Amanda10. But go and have a look just out of interest in any case, because it's really fascinating. Now, my first guest today is Christine Knight. She was very lucky, I think. So she's a fellow Aussie, but she was very lucky to be able to spend a few years living in New York City. And during that time, be able to spend quite a lot of time in the art galleries there.
I've been passionate about art myself since I was a kid. My parents took me to a few art galleries when I was growing up. And when we moved to New York, I was pregnant and had not much else to do. So I was hitting up all the art galleries while I was very pregnant for something to do because I loved it. And then she popped out and I pretty much put her in a baby carrier and just kept going to art galleries and didn't stop. So she was a baby, a toddler, and a preschooler going to some of the world's most famous art galleries.
That sounds fabulous, especially in New York City. Wow. What appeals to you about art galleries?
I really love, to be honest, the visual aspect of art for a start, because I really love things that are beautiful. Mm-hmm. So I love the Impressionists for that reason. But I also love history and culture, and I love how a glimpse at a painting or a photograph can transport you to a moment in history where something really, interesting or exciting was happening, even if the portrait is of, say, a lady in the bath. It's the context that's incredible as to why it was painted, how it was painted, who it was painted by, and the story about it is what really interests me. And then the visual nature excites my eyes, I guess.
Oh, that's beautifully said. It's kind of like time traveling, isn't it? So,
it is.
Yeah. Are you artistic yourself, or you only appreciate it, or both?
I would say through photography is my most artistic endeavor. I've loved photography since I was very small. My dad was very brave and let me use his archaic SLR Canon when I was a kid to learn on.
Fabulous.
So I had a little tiny Hanamax at first, and then I moved very swiftly onto the SLR, probably at about 9.
Oh, wow. That's great. What great training.
So that's been I can't draw, I can't paint, but photography has been one of my life passions.
Interesting. Yeah, because I can't draw or paint either. I would love to have that kind of artistic skill, but
same.
I just don't. Yeah, I think you have it or you don't. My 7-year-old has it, and he can draw so much better than me. Yeah, he's very sweet though, because he loves to sit and draw with me, and so I draw but badly, and he's very sweet about complimenting some part of my picture. So he's very lovely, but I accept I don't have that talent. And earlier on, I felt like I wasn't very appreciative of art galleries because I couldn't really relate to the how of it. So it took me a long time to really kind of, I don't know, dive into I like what you say about how it excites your eyes, because that's pretty much how I now feel it, and I'm old enough to think, okay, it doesn't matter which bits of art I like. I'm allowed to like whatever I like for whatever reason, and, sit and stare at the bits I really love, and that's kind of got me into loving art galleries. But in my early 20s, I was like, I don't really understand this and I can't do it. So.
Exactly. I take the same approach to art as I take to books. If I start reading a book and I don't like it, I don't force myself to read it because someone said it's a classic. I just put it down and pick up another book that I like. And I feel like art is the same, and you shouldn't force yourself to try and appreciate and like things that you just don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or feel bad about it. You just move on to the next one that you do like.
Yes. I think I felt kind of uneducated about it, but now I've accepted that I like what I like. And
yes, you may just never like a Rothko, and that's fine.
Yes, that's right. I will still have friends.
Exactly.
Now, from your time in New York City, favourite gallery there?
Oh, I would say the Met and the MoMA and the Guggenheim.
That's
I'll go with
3.
3. I don't have a favorite. They're all so different.
True.
I probably visited the Met and the MoMA the most.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked the Met has so much variety in it that you could spend, I used to just drop in for like an hour here and there and just look at one little area here. And I think I feel like going to the rooftop garden today. And I'll just go to the gardens that day and look at whatever the new, sculpture exhibition that was there for the summer. That was amazing. And the MoMA is always, it's always has new and exciting exhibitions to see. And the sculpture garden at the MoMA I always really loved, particularly with my daughter. She used to love running around the sculpture garden.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, that's fabulous. Yes, I, in fact, have been to all 3 of them, but, only once each and briefly, because my New York City experience is like less than a week in total. So I'm very jealous, because one day I would love to be there for an extended time and be able to just keep dropping into those kind of places and really get to know them. Oh, you lucky thing.
I know, it's a good time, really good time.
I bet, of all the places to spend a few years. I have to admit to being pretty envious of Christine's experience living in New York City, and one day I'm going to spend a solid chunk of time there and also pop into those galleries over and over again and really get to know them. I just think I would really enjoy that. Now, my next guest today is Erin Gustafson. She actually has an academic background in art history, so she knows this stuff. And it was really interesting to talk to her. So she's originally from the US, but at the moment is living in Copenhagen in Denmark. And so her discussion about the kinds of art galleries she likes to go to is especially centered on some great European suggestions.
I have a background in art history, and I have not had a job in it. We moved a lot, but I've always sought out experiences with arts and art museums, art galleries. When my kids were in school in the States, I helped run the art literacy program, which through studying kind of the masters, we would teach them a language with which to look at art. And we would pick one master and study how to look at line or composition or color and how the artist would use that. And then we would make a project that would be inspired by that artist. And so when I came to, it was fun, except when I came to Europe and would go to museums and see groups of school children sitting in front of the master. and just, we had to use slides and had to use, and it's just so different than sitting in front of the piece of art, because you just can't really imagine. Children just can't imagine scale or being able to see texture of paint or that there's so much that is lost on a slide that I just was like, oh, so jealous of the kids that got to be able to have this as their field trip at the Louvre or at the Musée d'Orsay. Here's these, and they were probably groaning and eyes rolling that they had to see another giant, amazing painting. But I just think they probably take for granted what they have. So they have such easy access to. Here in Copenhagen, my kids have been able to go about 30 minutes north. There is a wonderful museum called the Louisiana Museum of Modern Art. And it sits right on the water. And it's got a really good collection for being kind of a compact, smaller museum. It has an amazing collection of huge scale sculpture. They've got two of the big, I'm trying to blank here, Alexander Calder, in sitting outside, and then it's like onto the Baltic Sea right beyond that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then they've got Alberto Giacometti's. They just have a really amazing permanent collection, as well as attracting amazing traveling exhibitions. So right now there's an exhibition on Picasso ceramics, which I hadn't really realized that he was so prolific.
Me neither. Wow.
Yeah. And so you can see all of those familiar kind of images and shapes that you're familiar with, the kind of more modern Picasso in a vase. Like
How cool.
So it's charming and recognizable, and they have tons of it. And apparently the man made lots and lots and lots and lots of art. It's kind of crazy. They had a really good exhibition of Yayoi Kusama, the Japanese artist do you know her?
Yes. She's awesome. Yeah.
So awesome. Oh. And they had I think they have actually a permanent installation now of one of her infinity rooms where you step inside and it has the mirrored, it's mirrored, and then they have water on the floor, and you kind of stand on this platform, and then the lights kind of fade in and out. It's so cool. Wow. And the kids love that. So I've been lucky to get to chaperone a couple field trips for the kids here in Copenhagen there. And so we really love that one. And there's good classic art museums in the city in Copenhagen. The Statens Museum for Kunst, the State Museum of Art, is really good. But taking a quick train, it's about half an hour north of the city to Louisiana is the way to go. I would highly recommend. Yeah, and they have a great cafe. Yeah, that would be my local pick.
That sounds awesome. I'm putting it on my list.
Okay.
What's your non-local pick?
My non-local pick. Well, I think everybody feels like they have to see the Louvre when they go to Paris, but it's so overwhelming and it's so huge and the crowds can be so big. I mean, we have an amusing picture of my son taking a picture of the Mona Lisa, and it's all the cell phones taking pictures of the Mona Lisa. Oh, yes. I have the Mona Lisa through his camera, but but that was kind of more more than seeing the Mona Lisa, it was seeing everybody.
Seeing the people seeing the Mona Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's right.
So, but I have never had any crowds or any line or any wait at the Musée de l'Orangerie at the other side of the Tuileries. Have you been in there?
No, I have not.
It's so, they have, it's basically the Monets. You go to see these huge, there's two really large oval rooms that they have created this diffused light from the outside. And the Monets are glued to the wall, so they fit kind of the oval of the room. They're so stunning. And there's benches in the middle that you can just kind of sit and be surrounded by. And it's the really late, they were painted in like the 1920s. And I think he passed in 26, 27. And so they've been in this location, and to my knowledge will not be moving because they're literally glued to the wall.
Yes. Wow.
So it's not, it's easy to get into. It's not very expensive. There's not a line. I never have had that many people. I think the people want to get bang for their buck. And so they pick the Musée d'Orsay or they pick the Louvre. But if you just want an art experience that is, I feel like it's really moving. It's very engaging and intimate, which is hard to do in a city like Paris.
Yes, exactly. Oh my goodness. I'm just Googling pictures of it. It looks incredible. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay. I have to get back to Paris now.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Wow. That's something really special.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an excellent pick. I've also, meantime, been Googling also pictures of Picasso's ceramics, and that looks incredible too. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And really good.
You are the right person to ask about this stuff. Well, some really great suggestions from Erin there. I've got some links ready for you in the show notes to those art galleries that she mentioned. But me, perhaps being a words person and not a pictures person, my immediate question afterwards was, why is it called the Louisiana Museum of Modern Art when it's in Denmark? I thought, I was thinking like the US, Louisiana. It all didn't make sense to me. So, of course, Google helped me out there. And apparently the property, or the country house on the property, which was later converted to this Louisiana Museum of Modern Art, was owned by a man back in the 1800s who married 3 women. I'm not sure if they were at the same time or what happened. Google is not quite clear to me. But he married 3 women who were all named Louise. So it was Louisiana, which is kind of weird, hey? But an interesting story. So there you go. But it does sound like an awesome art gallery, and I'd love to get there one day. I have to go to Denmark soon because my son is desperate to go and see the country where Lego originates. So Louisiana Museum of Modern Art, not far from the home of Lego. Anyway, let's move on. My final guest today is another art lover who has a lot of experience. So I'm going to be speaking with Anna Kwiencinska, who owned an art gallery here in Perth for many years, has studied art history, is very, very involved in art. So it was really interesting to talk to her about art and travelling.
The history of galleries is very fascinating, and in Britain I spent 2 years at the Courtauld Institute studying art history, and we had, there were 3 people in my MA class, so it was like a hothouse really, and extraordinary faculty, people whose great tomes are on every library shelf around the world in institutions. Yes, really very great art historians. And for me, the most memorable gallery experience was, in fact, going with Dr. Lorne Campbell, just walking up from school and going into the National Gallery and standing in front of a little Trecento altarpiece. Yes, I suppose it was like a travelling altarpiece with St. Louis, and having this conversation with with the man who could read everything into it and know the huge context of it. And I always felt that he was so generous with his time in teaching me how to look. I suppose it was more about looking than teaching me history as such.
Right, yes.
I've tried that out in other people, but I realised that unless you're passionately interested in art history, looking at the backs of altarpieces, as I subjected my poor mother to on a trip through Italy. Probably you have to just check it out first, because she said to me the other day, I did enjoy it, but those horrible little faces with the wings on them, and I realised she meant the putti. And I'd never thought of them as horrible little things, but she was coming to grips with that, and yet I was taking her to the back of the altarpieces and showing her where all the connection points were and how it had been braced and so on, and what kind of timber it had been made from. So I guess my training has given me a certain eye, to analysing what I see. I very rarely get seduced just by the beauty of something. I want to know much more about it.
Okay. And the stories behind it.
Yeah, that probably comes from having dealt, as being an art dealer for almost 2 decades.
Yes.
Where art becomes a job. Sadly, has in a certain way becomes a job. I feel much freer now to simply enjoy myself.
Oh, yes, of course.
I don't have to think of it commercially.
Yes.
Although
it's probably hard to stop. But
it's a little bit hard to stop.
Yeah.
So certainly in Fez, one of my ambitions is to just if I could curate one exhibition a year, I would be that would satify a sort of craving, I suppose.
Of local artists?
No, not necessarily. The language school that I study at is called the American Language Institute of Fez, ALIF. And the director is an American who was an art gallery owner in New York.
Oh, wow.
So we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
And Alif have a very beautiful riad in the Medina, as it turns out, just steps away from where I'll be living. Uh-huh. And this last spring, he organised an exhibition by an RA, a Royal Academician artist from Britain, and it was a success. I mean, it was a small commercial success, but I think a very important critical success.
Yes, right.
And I kind of imagine something might evolve there.
Yes.
That would be beautiful.
Oh, so it sounds like there's lots of possibilities, and you've already met a lot of the right people to. Yeah.
Look, I think if you talk to lots and lots of people, eventually some kind of synchrony will reveal itself, and you realise that you can run down that rabbit hole and
that's very true.
See what happens.
Yeah. I am very curious to hear how Anna's plans to curate exhibitions in Fez continues to play out. I'm quite keen to visit her in Fez sometime in the next few years, so perhaps I can time it and see one of their exhibitions. Perfect, hey? I'm full of plans. I just need more time and more money, especially more money. If anyone knows how to do that, let me know. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to episode 105 of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. A big thank you to our sponsor, The Boy Who Draws. Do head over to theboywhodraws.com and have a look. And remember, you can use Amanda10 for a 10% discount on any of the City Series prints or card packs. Thank you also to Christine Knight, who chatted about New York City. Her website is adventurebaby at christineknight.me. Thanks also to Erin from Oregon Girl Around the World. Around the World at the moment is Copenhagen, and she's at OregonGirlAroundTheWorld.com. And along with Erin's website, I'm leaving links to those couple of art galleries she mentioned in Copenhagen and Paris. And finally, I chatted with Anna Kwiencinska, and you can find her at annakwiencinska.com. She also runs gorgeous art retreats, among other kinds of retreats, in Bali. So if you're wanting to spend a few days in Bali painting with some amazing art teachers there, then have a look at her. She's got links to her retreats on that site as well. Do come along and join our fabulous group of travel lovers. They are called Thoughtful Travellers. Come along into Facebook and search for Thoughtful Travellers, or just hit the link in the show notes. And the show notes with all of this will be at notaballerina.com/105. Thank you very, very much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.